Well, the Buffalo Bills can tie the Patriots for first place in the AFC East with a win tonight at MetLife against the Jets. New England has a bye. A win tonight would get this Buffalo team to 6-2. I thought the Kelvin Benjamin move at the trading deadline was huge for them. They get a tremendous receiver that I think will only add to what they're able to do offensively. And the climate has changed, and I'm anxious to get Joe Buscagila on, sideline reporter for the Buffalo Bills, who joins us here on Big Board Sports, 104.5 at Team ESPN Radio, to ask what it is about the climate change. And I think a lot of it has to do with the new head coach, Sean McDermott. Good morning, Joe. Roger Weiland, Chris Honorado in Albany. How are you?
Good morning, guys. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. I mean, what is it about this Bills team? And I go, sometimes we've been down this road before where they've gotten off to a pretty good start, and you think, all right, this is the year the drought's going to end. But there is something different about this year's Bills team through these first 8 games. What is it from covering this team?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, back in 2011, when they started the year 5-2. You know, that year, it just kind of felt like it was a little bit fake, only because they were coming from behind and beating teams they probably had no business of beating, and their defense really wasn't that great. Their offense felt like they were overperforming. Just felt a little bit fluky. This year, you're right. It does feel different, and it in the early stages it was tough to quantify it. But now seeing them handle their business the way that they both go into games, are prepared, they have a pretty distinct game plan of what they want to do, and when they get a lead, they don't surrender it, and that's something that we haven't seen from a Bills team in a while. You know, the ability to close out those games and the ability to beat solid opponents. I mean, it's not as though this is a team that is 5-2 with wins over Cleveland and San Francisco. I mean, this is like the Bills were that last year when they started 4-2, by the way. This is a team that has wins over Oakland, a win over Atlanta, a win over Denver, a win over a New York Jets team that is playing a little bit better than a lot of people expected, and a win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who a lot of people thought were going to push for the playoffs in the NFC this year. So it's a pretty solid group of wins to have. But the job that Sean McDermott and company has done so far this season has been good. I mean, we hear the cliched term of culture change all the time, right? But yeah. I think the difference with McDermott is that it's actually happening. The people inside the building have changed from the Rex Ryan era to the Sean McDermott regime, and we're seeing the proof of that. We're seeing players, you know, love playing for their head coach. We're seeing players have accountability within the locker room, and you know, and that's a huge tenet of this. So all in all, this has been a really good job by Sean McDermott, and he has to be one of the top 3 or 4 candidates for Coach of the Year in the NFL, by all means.
Yeah, and we throw the changing the climate around an awful lot, probably too much. But I agree. In this case, right. It really does fit. And win the night, you get to 6-2, be their best record through 8 games since 1993. And you know what? There's good players in this team, Joe, but I don't know about great. I mean, 18 of the 53 players are undrafted. I think this is really a good coaching job, all from top to bottom with his staff.
Yeah, it's a good coaching job. They do have some talent, like Jerry Hughes has been playing out of his mind at defensive end for them. I mean, he might not have the sack production that shows it, but he has been outstanding this season. I don't know that all of this would have been possible without the play of the rookie cornerback, Tre'Davious White. He has been incredibly solid for them. He even shadowed Amari Cooper last week and shut him down, which was just one of his best performances as a pro thus far. And then the play of the safeties that they brought in free agency, whether it be Micah Hyde, who just won AFC Defensive Player of the Month with 4 picks in October, or Jordan Poyer. I mean, those guys have really helped. But to your point, I mean, large scale, this is a team that are just kind of playing ahead of expectations and ahead of the timeline here, because we all thought that this was going to be a bit of a year where they kind of learn about themselves. They might not have gotten the wins, but they would have played people tough, and that's what they wanted the most out of the year. But what they're finding now is that they are having, I guess, the mental toughness to put these games away and are taking advantage of all of these opportunities that they're affording themselves by putting themselves, by being well schooled and putting themselves in position to make these plays. So, I mean, it's a good job by the coaching staff, a really good job by the players of taking advantage of the opportunities, and all in all, being able to close out games is, I mentioned it before, but that is something that we have not seen this Bills team do in quite some time. It's when they have a lead in the fourth quarter, it feels like it's done, and they have done a really good job of that.
Bills sideline reporter Joe Buscagila with us here, and of course of WKBW as well. If they get to 6-2 tonight, Joe, almost feels like it would be difficult not to reach the postseason. You could go 500 the rest of the way and feel pretty good with a 10-6 record. I know it doesn't necessarily get easy. Saints, Chargers, Chiefs, and Patriots are the next four after this game against the Jets. But be honest with us here. When they started trading away pieces this offseason, they seemed like Tyrod Taylor's best weapons in a lot of ways, and then they even ship out a guy like Marcel Darius, and yet the beat goes on in Buffalo here, and they bring in a guy like Kelvin Benjamin. Where did you think this team would be record-wise? Because honestly, I would have pegged them as like a 4-12 squad.
Yeah, I thought they were going to be in like the 5-11, 6-10 range myself, but that's just because the main reason was due to the lack of depth that they had at some positions. And that has not burned them so far this season, which is solid for them. But if they have a rash of injuries, I think that could play a factor down the line. However, the job that they've done in building depth, where it seems like there wasn't depth, has been a good one. Like they've seen guys like Eddie Yarbrough, for instance, a defensive end who was cut by the Broncos, couldn't even get a sniff in the CFL last year. He signs on with the team back in February or March and plays his way onto the roster, and now is getting meaningful snaps for them in substitution of Shaq Lawson at defensive end. I mean, that's just a small example of the depth that they have been able to build at certain positions that seemed weak. So right now, what they have, I mean, all the trades, they're building for tomorrow while playing for today, and that's something that they've been saying that they would do throughout time, but we've all kind of been like, yeah, okay, how can you really do both? But they've done it to their credit, and now sensing that they have an opportunity at 5-2, and knowing that it'll probably only take 5 wins out of the next 9 games with teams like the Jets, the Chargers, the Saints, which are 3 winnable games for the team right in a row here. They still have the Colts on their schedule. They still have the Dolphins twice more on their schedule. So conceivably, you can find 5 wins out of there, and it's just a matter of them being able to do it, and that's why they surrounded themselves with another target for Tyrod Taylor. And in my opinion, they kind of gave up a minimal cost, because there's no way you're finding a Kelvin Benjamin type of guy in the third round by any means.
Yeah.
Does he? What's the chances of him playing and contributing tonight?
You know, I think with him and the position he plays, it probably is a little bit more conducive to playing on that much notice, because wide receiver, you can have the quarterback go up to him and say, all right, run a 9 on this, run a 3 on this. I mean, it's not as though it's going to be impossible for him. Now, I don't think he'll be out there 100% of the time if he plays. I think the red zone would probably be a logical place for him with a big-bodied 6'5", 250-pound receiver. I think that's probably a good place to start, and maybe mix in with the offense here or there. I know they're getting him up to speed as quickly as they can, and I'm sure Tyrod Taylor and Jordan Matthews and even Zay Jones are all sitting down with them to get him up to speed as much as possible. But I think he'll have. If he does play, I think he'll have a red zone role, maybe a little bit more than that.
Well, fair enough. Listen, the Jets, I don't think it'll be an easy game tonight. The Jets have surprised too, and the quarterback play has been pretty good, and they're in games, and they've blown some leads. So I think the Bills will have to play well tonight. I think they'll win this game, but I don't think it'll be a lopsided score.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people it would be a disappointment if the Bills lose this game, and beating them in week 1, and it was a lot closer than what it felt like near the end of the game. I mean, the Jets were challenging them around like the third quarter or something like that in week 1, and McCown was able to have some success over the middle of the field, and they didn't have Austin Seferian-Jenkins back then, which is an area and a player I think the Jets are going to use to attack the Bills, because that's kind of been a weak spot for them. But that said, I think the rushing attack of the Bills with LaShawn McCoy and the way their offensive line played last week against Oakland, I'm telling you what, that is one of the best total offensive line performances I've seen from this Bills team since I started covering them back in 2010. So they're going to look to build off that, and going up against maybe a weakened Muhammad Wilkerson, if he even plays, I think the Bills have a tremendous opportunity to, like you said, have their best start since 1993.
Yeah. Hey, Joe, always a pleasure. Keep up the great work, man. And we, as you know, ton of Buffalo Bills fans here in the Capital Region.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate you.